Jake Reefer and I are here to talk a little bit about how we've been connecting with people over the past few weeks, just with the COVID crisis and not being able to meet together. So we thought we'd just share some thoughts about how we are trying to minister to people during this time and catch up with folks. Jake is obviously the youth pastor here at our church. We're excited to have he and his wife Mariah around. And so, Jake, just share with us a little bit about what you've been doing to connect with kids. How have you been connecting with kids?
Well, there's been a couple different ways. It's been kind of a fun challenge for sure. Definitely a challenge. It's been interesting to watch how certain kids take to this whole online thing really, really well, and others don't. Kind of like adults, I guess. But we've been doing a couple things. So one of the things that I did very quickly was an online youth group, just streaming it on YouTube and YouTube. That'd be funny. Streaming it on YouTube and trying to make it interactive in some way, having some kind of game that they can play in the chat board or like run around their house and, like a scavenger hunt, find some stuff. And a shorter lesson. So it's been very abbreviated. It's been very different, but it's a way for me to be kind of with students in some way and for them to feel like they're kind of hanging out and playing a game somehow. So that's been good. And one of the big things that has actually been kind of a blessing out of all this is trying to get some small groups started. That was one of my big goals for this year. And in some ways it's happened. In other ways, I think there's a lot of runway left, but I just think small groups are crucial for people to grow in their faith. And so one of the things that this has given us an opportunity to do is like, well, one of the things was like, when do we do small groups and when do we have people who are willing to put time into it? And well, now we have a lot of that. So we've been, I just started kind of last week, a small group for our high schoolers, and we've been having our middle schoolers have kind of had, the girls and boys have kind of had something started for a little while already. And so that's been a really cool opportunity. Just like, how can we get together and see each other's faces and chat? And we've been doing a Bible study that way. And then the other thing that I feel really passionate about in this time is like devotionals, is like getting like the reason we don't start habits in the first place is, there's not enough time. And, that's the big thing. It's like, I don't have enough time. Well, there's enough time now. And so,
Right.
I wrote a little Psalms devotional for students to do. Just go through one Psalm a day, read the Psalm, reflect on a couple questions, pray it out loud, and that's it. And so I've been able to send that out. And I know there's been a couple students doing it. Probably most aren't, but at least putting it out there for them has been good. And then the bunch of random stuff during the week is playing video games with kids and FaceTiming kids, dropping off ice cream. So we've been playing youth group we've been playing games at youth group, and I tell the winner, like, I'll give you some ice cream. So I've gone to a couple kids' house and put ice cream on their porch and talk to them from 6 feet away.
Right.
So little random stuff like that. But that's mostly what I've been doing, is small groups, devotionals, and a kind of online youth group thing.
Okay. So you hit the large group folks, you hit small groups, you hit individuals, and then sounds like you're trying to give them some personal things to work on in their spiritual life. So you're hitting all the bases that you need to, which is awesome. And I'm sure it's been a little bit challenging. So let's start with sort of the youth group aspect. How did you set that up technically? And what did you need to do in order to do that? What did you have to get set up?
There was a lot of, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who can relate to this, just like a tech learning curve. And I know that you can probably relate to this, Brian, too.
Yeah.
Just having to learn a lot about, like, I decided, okay, well, let's do this youth group thing. I think the best thing to do it on would be YouTube, since you don't have to be a Facebook user or Instagram user or something like that to be a part of it, which a lot of students aren't. So I was like, let's do something on YouTube. And then just having to figure out, like, how to stream live on YouTube and how to get a program. I just did a lot of Googling and a lot of like researching and asking people. And Taylor was doing a lot of, sorry, shaking my camera. Taylor was doing a lot of stuff here for the church. And so I just kind of stole a lot of the stuff that he was doing already and that he was figuring out and piggybacking off of that. So that was kind of the technical part. And I feel like that's kind of changing every single week and getting a little bit better every single week.
Okay. So did you have to spend any extra money to get set up?
I did have to buy a couple pieces of equipment. I use this as an excuse to buy some of the stuff that I've kind of wanted to have for a little while already, just personally. So I did have to buy, like, to get an actual microphone to go into your computer in a way that really sounds nice. You need a mixer or an audio interface of some kind. And so I bought a little audio interface. But I've been wanting to use that. A friend of mine and I record a podcast very intermittently and randomly. And I've just been using like my phone microphone and stuff. And so this was an excuse for me to buy a cheap microphone and stand. I mean, this microphone and stand that's connected to my desk, it only costs like $30 or $35 or something. So it's not very nice, but it sounds okay.
Yeah, it sounds great.
And the audio interface was more expensive, but is one that people say will last forever. So, so yeah, there was a little bit of that, but most of the stuff, the programs and stuff that I use is all free. I use a thing for the YouTube streaming called OBS. It's free. So yeah, it really hasn't been, it was mostly just learning how to use it, downloading it, and finding all the right stuff. And yeah, so there's a learning curve for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you started doing the small groups and the Bible studies, what kind of challenges? I mean, obviously you had to overcome the technical challenge, but what program did you use?
For small groups, we've been doing a lot of Zoom. I mean, our church has been doing a lot of Google Meet and Zoom stuff, and both have been fine. I think Zoom is a little bit easier because you can see everybody's face in a little bit of an easier layout. And yeah, but it's a struggle. I mean, not everyone. Part of it is just, it's always going to be there. Like if someone doesn't have a good internet connection, or their microphone is crackling, or their video is cutting in and out, like there's not much that you can do about that.
Yeah.
And there's definitely been a struggle for me it's been interesting to see how some kids really just, they're more talkative, they're more willing to engage and more willing to talk on a Zoom format than something else. But then again, there's also kids who are more willing to talk on a Zoom thing and are more willing to make inappropriate jokes or be a little bit rowdy or whatever. Which that's not crazy abnormal to have kids being kids, but that has been one of the struggles. And it's harder to feel like sometimes you're being heard online fully, and like that you have everybody's attention, because you can kind of tell people are, off looking at another screen or something like that.
So when you have when you're doing a small group Bible study, how long does it usually go for?
About an hour and a half, probably. Yeah, which I guess is kind of long, and I feel it being pretty long by the end. I find them pretty exhausting. I don't know about you, Brian, but our community group, our adult community group, has been going. I mean, it meets for 2 hours normally. Yeah. There's not a global pandemic, and we've been meeting for about 2 hours on Zoom.
Wow.
And by the end of that, it's kind of like, okay, like I'm ready for this to kind of, because there's an extra social, you kind of have to manage the socialness in a different way, because you're waiting for people to hear you and then respond, and you might have to repeat yourself. And it's like being heard over other people, and there can only be one conversation at a time. It kind of slows things down in a way. Like if we had community group normally, we would all show up, and I'd be talking with you, and maybe Julie and Mariah would be talking off on the side, and then there'd be another group of people kind of catching up. And this way, it's like you have to go one by one,
Right.
and it kind of slows things down, and it takes a little bit of extra energy to actively listen and stuff. So that can be exhausting, and it's just time consuming.
Yeah.
So, which is, I don't know if that will go away with time or not.
You definitely need a moderator, kind of, if you will. That's kind of a official term, but like someone who's leading that Zoom call so that they can kind of keep control of things.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. How about you though, Brian? How has it been a kind of, you have a whole lot more people that you're probably trying to connect with, and how have you been doing that? How's that been going?
Yeah. So we've got some similar things going on in terms of large group, which is Sunday morning worship. And then small groups, which is our community groups and our Bible studies, and then some individual check-ins. So Sunday morning worship has been a huge challenge to overcome technically. We've had to buy some equipment and software, and Taylor, who is our worship director, has been trying to, he's just spent hours and hours and hours putting it together and making sure it works on YouTube and all that stuff. So it's been pretty challenging, and we've gotten a little bit better each week, I think. It's, and we know it's not going to be perfect, and we have limited resources. So I think the other thing for me to remind ourselves is that we're not trying to put on a, full-fledged Hollywood production,
Right. This isn't Bethel's worship service.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. One of our values is authenticity. And so we're going to go with what we got. So,
yeah.
But it's gone really well, I feel like, so far. And then we started these Wednesday night worship services, and we just did one to test it out, and everybody loved it. And it's pretty simple. We just sing. There's someone shares a devotional in between some songs, and it goes for about an hour. And we thought we would just do it once and see how it worked, and then maybe do it every other week. But people were like, no, that's really helping me get through this crisis. We really want you to keep doing that. So we decided to put a lot of effort into making sure that we can pull off that Wednesday night worship service. So that's been going well. So that's kind of on a large group scale. Oh, and I would say one of the ways that we've also been able to try to communicate with people during those large group is have a chat box going. And we have a moderator that sort of monitors that chat box just to make sure that like no one, comes in that's not part of our community and inappropriately says something or something like that. But and also they can respond to questions and everything. So that's been really helpful. And people are, they get to see who else is online and talk to them back and forth a little bit. So that's been pretty neat. So our small groups, I lead all of our I don't personally lead all of our small groups, but I oversee our small group ministry. So that's our community group structure, and that's our Bible study structure. So most of the community groups are meeting. I'm going to find out a little bit more today. We are going to have a 4:00 conference call on Zoom. So we'll be checking in with one another there, but I know some of them have been meeting because I've heard about it. And the Bible studies, a lot of the Bible studies are meeting. I run my own community group, and I also have a men's Bible study that I lead. So community group has been good. I wasn't sure how it was going to go. This is new to us.
Yeah.
We've never done this before. And like you mentioned earlier, our church has been using Google Hangouts meetings and also Zoom. And the Google Meet is free through the G Suites account that we have. But the interface just wasn't as easy to see everybody. So we went ahead and paid for a couple of Zoom accounts, which I think is totally worth it because I like the interface a lot better. You can see everybody easier.
Right. And you can use them for a whole lot of things. I mean, there's several people using my Zoom account. Maybe Zoom's going to shut me down if I say that, but we've got, Tessa's been using it for middle school girls, and John Kerwin's been using it for his Bible study, and I've been using it for stuff. And you can get a lot of, as long as people aren't meeting at the same time, you get a lot of work out of one account. And it's not that,
definitely.
It's worth it.
Yeah, it's been great. So, and we haven't had any security issues yet with anybody jumping in. So maybe that'll happen, but I hope not. So going back to our community group, one of the things that I make sure that we do is go around and check in with everybody. So I know it sounds kind of basic, but during this time, different families are dealing with this crisis in different ways. And we want to make sure, that we as a church are trying to do our best to pastor people through it, minister alongside people, and help them to minister alongside one another too. So, we make sure we check in. How's your job going? Make sure they're employed, have any needs and so forth. My particular community group is pretty self-sufficient. A lot of younger folks, one couple that's higher risk health-wise, but they're doing fine and everything. So that's been going well. We meet for about an hour. Normally we meet for probably 2 hours when we're together, but about an hour is about the point to where I get really worn out, I think. So, but we've been doing our study. We're going through a book by Ed Welch, Side by Side, and then we share questions and have discussion and everything. And then for the men's Bible study, we normally meet at Panera Bread at 6:30 a.m. on Friday mornings. And so obviously we're not meeting at Panera Bread. We're doing a Zoom call, but I wonder, no one has to really go into work. So I thought, well, maybe they're going to want to meet a little bit later, but no, they want to meet at 6:30 a.m. So they're all in. And I've had a really good response. We've probably had, between 8 and 12 guys show up each time. And we just started going through the Psalms, and it's been good. I can share my screen with that. I learned how to do that last week. And so I'm excited about that. And then just trying to connect with people one-on-one, even just a Zoom call, instead of a phone call is great and everything, but I want to see someone's face or just check in with them, see how they're doing. You can do that. And then we too are trying to put out just some resources to our congregation. I did a thing yesterday on biblical affirmations. We also are trying to get our folks to share, to take a video of themselves and share just like a 2-minute gospel story of how God's been impacting their life lately, so that we can share it with one another. So it's going well. I'd say some of the issues, kind of like what you said, not everybody has a good computer with great audio and video. I mean, we're just blessed here at the church, I have an excellent computer and setup and everything. But a lot of people, don't really have that. They haven't needed it before as much as they do now. So,
right.
I think there's probably some older people that are struggling a little bit with the technology as well. So I've had to go over to someone's house and try to help them out a little bit with that. And that's hard because they really want to be engaged and be a part of things. And then the other thing we quickly found out when we started doing the online meetings was to mute or not to mute. So, it's really hard if everybody is not muted, if everybody's audio is on and they're trying to talk over each other and it switches back and forth, and then you can't hear the other person when someone talks over them. So sometimes we'll say, okay, hey, everybody mute except so-and-so, so that they can sort of have the floor and everything. So plus you pick up on a lot of background
Right. A dog
conversations or
barking, a kid
or something.
running.
So, and you
Yeah.
know what, but then that's okay too. Like that's life.
Yeah.
That's how we're living life right now. And
Yeah.
it's hard. Oh, another thing that we did, which I thought went surprisingly well, was on Good Friday. We had a noon prayer meeting.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that went for a good 45 minutes. And we just did, I just led some people through scripture, and prayed through scripture for different things. And I thought
That
that
went
went
really
really
well.
well. You were part of that. What did you think from your end, from the user
Yeah,
end, if you
I
will?
thought it was great. I thought people were um, participated really well. It was nice to be able to see, kind of the scripture up on the screen, and you
Mm-hmm.
definitely felt led. I do. Yeah. I mean, I think there's different fluency levels with the technology, and some people were muted, some people weren't. I think there were a
Right.
couple people who maybe started to pray but were muted and didn't realize it until partway through and stuff like that.
Mm.
But I mean, for what it is and what it has to be, it was great. It was
Yeah.
totally great.
Yeah. It's amazing how we've been able to use the technology to continue to do a lot of these things. And
Right.
so I'm interested to see how it's going to change when this is over and we can come back together as a congregation.
Mm,
I have a feeling that we will continue to use some of this technology. I plan on keeping my Zoom account.
mm,
It's so much easier to get everybody together for a meeting that they
mm,
don't have to leave their house to go to or whatnot.
mm.
Um, at the same time, I don't want to lose the personal connection of
Right.
being together in physically in the presence of one another. That is very important
Right.
and everything. But there are times when, if that's not possible, um, or maybe people can jump in to a meeting that they can't
Mm,
make to. So
mm. It
I
does
don't know.
certainly, especially in Midlothian where it takes 20 minutes to get anywhere. You cut out 20 minutes there and 20 minutes back.
Yeah,
um, for people, and maybe that's all that they need to be able to be a part of a small group. It's like, well, if I don't have to get there, then yeah, absolutely, I'll be a part of that Bible study or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap this up for a minute and just share. Why don't you share, Jake? Maybe what's been the biggest struggle or obstacle for you personally during this time?
Hmm. The biggest struggle for me is it really is not being able to be in person with people.
Mm.
As good as this is, there's so many things that I miss by being online. Like you miss those. I mean, first of all, it's just good. It's encouraging to be around someone physically,
Right.
because that's how we're made. Um, but there's also all kinds of things that you pick up on when you're with someone. Kind of their demeanor and maybe how they're doing, and it's you miss on some of that when you are just talking through a computer. And so I'm sure I'm missing some of those things where I would normally be asked, be like, hey, are you doing okay with
Mm.
this thing that I don't pick up on? And it's hard a little bit too. I mean, I know for me right now too, probably the hardest thing related to that is the things that have been, this is kind of a scattershot answer at this point. The things that have been canceled
Yeah.
have been really hard. For me, this weekend was supposed to be high school Majnik,
Mm.
and we had a great group of high schoolers going. There were some kids going who I was excited that they were going. They don't come to a whole lot of other stuff, and I was really excited to just see, like, okay, this person's going to get plugged in. We had the leaders that were coming were awesome. I was just like, this is going to be a really great thing for some of our students, and now that's canceled. And to wrestle with, like, I hope that those students will come back to something when all of this picks up again.
Yeah.
Had to cancel our missions trip to Belize or
Mm.
postpone it until next summer. And that was another thing. I was like, there were 18 high schoolers who were going to raise money and get on a plane and go to Belize for a week this summer. And I think that was going to be and will be one of the most maturing experiences for them, and for me. And just to have that pulled is really, really hard for me. It's hard for me to feel like the pause button's been slammed. In some ways
Yeah.
it's good for us to pause and to be able to spend more time at home and
Mm-hmm.
and spend more time doing quieter things and reflecting, and that's really good. But it's hard when the pause button gets hit on really good things that were going to be challenging and growing, and so to have that kind of pulled is a little bit like, oh, well, okay, like I guess we're just that's being put on hold. So,
Right.
God will have his will be accomplished, but it's been hard for me not to be around people and know that all these things have kind of been yanked off the schedule and off of the just kind of the heartbeat of kind of the flow of the ministry. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah. How about you though, Brian?
Yeah, I'd say that rings true. The physical presence of others, and then just like it's kind of like this emotional weirdness of we're not on vacation, but everything is stopped, and actually you can't go on vacation right now. I mean, you can if you stay at your house, but like we have a week planned at the beach starting Memorial Day weekend. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. And so, it's been a little bit of an emotional struggle to get through what is going on. Like the whole world is going through this. And we need to continue to trust that the Lord is working in a mighty way and that he's going to glorify himself through this.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been trying to focus on a little bit. And also I keep mentioning this partly because it's true. And I want people to understand it, is that we need to worship our way out of this situation. That's the only thing that keeps my spirits going, is spending time in the Word, in prayer, writing prayer notes to people, listening to worship music. We have there's three of us that come in to church. We're in different parts of the building, really, in different offices, but we do have some social interaction there, which has been fun and healthy, I think, spiritually. So for those of you who don't know, we've set up cornhole in the sanctuary. So that's how we do things
like
around
a college
here.
dorm in here.
That's right. So we've been trying to take a little break here and there and just be with each other, and it's been fun. So I think just the emotional struggle, but the Lord's been good and his presence has been really felt. And I think that's going to, have a long-term impact as we focus in and zero in on worshiping God for who he is. And, it brings out all the blessings that we actually do have, I think, during this time. And I know a lot of people are struggling financially, and otherwise. They're also struggling emotionally and spiritually. And, a lot of people can't see their family. I know you had a trip planned to see your parents in Italy, and that got canceled. And I'm sure that's hard. So there's just a lot of weirdness emotionally going on that we can only trust the Lord's going to sustain us through, and he's our hope. So that's what I'm trying to focus in on. So, Well, Jake, this has been great to check in with you and
me too.
Find out what you've been up to. So appreciate it. And we'll have to do this again.
Yeah.
Sound good?
Definitely. This is fun. Thanks,
All
Brian.
right.
It's a good idea.
Right. See ya.
All right. Bye.